Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 4, entitled Drumil explains the incarnations of Godhead to King Nimi. Text 4 onwards. Yat kai esha bhuvanatraya sannivesho yasyendriyas tanubhritam ubhayendriyani jnanam swatashvasanato balamocha iha Satvadibhi sthiti layot bhav adikarta. Within his body are elaborately arranged the three planetary systems of this universe. So this is describing the universal form, Virat Rupa. His transcendental senses generate the knowledge acquiring and active senses of all embodied beings. His consciousness generates conditioned knowledge, and his powerful breathing produces the bodily strength, sensory power, and conditioned activities of the embodied souls. He is a prime mover through the agency of the material modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. And thus the universe is created, maintained, and annihilated. When the conditioned soul becomes completely exhausted by his strenuous activities, or when he is overcome by disease, death, or fear, he loses all power to manifest practical knowledge or activities. Thus, we should understand that independent of the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we can neither work nor cultivate knowledge. By the mercy of the Personality of Godhead, the conditioned soul acquires a material body, which is a perverted reflection of the unlimited spiritual body of the Lord. So Lord has, even if we look at the universal form, which is material, that is also unlimited, but to speak of a spiritual body. Thus the living entity engages in ignorant materialistic activities for society, friendship, and love. When the entire program suddenly vanishes with the unforeseen dissolution of the material body. Similarly, our material knowledge is always subject to become null and void within an instant, since the material nature is itself constantly changing. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is a prime mover behind the birth, maintenance, and destruction of the universe. And the living entity should try to understand that Personality of Godhead, who's given him so much facility for the Personality of Godhead, who has given him so much facility for illusion. So everything comes from him, whether it's our intelligence, our body, our strength to move the body, strength to do anything, and the illusion also. To forget Krishna, it comes from him. Now it's up to us. What do we want? The Personality of Godhead actually wants the conditioned soul to surrender to him and regain an eternal life of bliss and knowledge at the Lord's side. The conditioned soul should reason, if the Lord is giving me so much facility to merge into ignorance, surely he will give even more facility to come out of this ignorance if I humbly follow his directions without foolish speculations. But this is our problem. We want to just think, no, maybe this, maybe that. What is it that he wants? Why is it created? Is there any God? It's funny, I was reading somewhere. We always ask, is there God? God never asks. Is there a person called Vidurpriya? He never asks. He knows I'm here. However foolish I am, but I'm here. This verse describes Garbhodaksha Vishnu, the second phase of Purusha incarnation of the Lord. This Garbhodaksha Vishnu, who is glorified in the Purusha Shukta prayers, expands himself as a super soul to enter the heart of every living being. Well, expands himself through Kshirodaksha Vishnu. First, he expands himself as Kshirodaksha Vishnu, and then he expands as a super soul through chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Even in this degraded age, one can find the Supreme Lord within one's heart. The Lord is a person as much as we are, but he is unlimited. Still, a personal loving relationship exists between the tiny living entity and the unlimited Supreme Lord. In consideration of this personal relationship, Bhakti Yoga is the only suitable process by which to come to the ultimate understanding of our constitutional position as eternal servants of the Supreme Lord. So that's the only way we can make that relationship or revive that relationship. Adav abhuchad tad dhriti rajasasya sarge Vishnu stito kritu patir dvij dharma setu Rudro apyaya tamsa purusha sadya iti udbhav sthiti lya satatam prajasu. In the beginning, the original personality of God had manifested the form of Brahma through the material mode of passion in order to create this universe. The Lord manifested his form as Vishnu, the Lord of sacrifice and protector of the twice born Brahmins and the religious duties to maintain the universe. And when the universe is to be annihilated, the same Supreme Lord employs a material mode of ignorance and manifests the form of Rudra. The created living beings are thus always subject to the forces of creation, maintenance, and destruction. In the previous verse, the Supreme Personality of Godhead was described as Adi Karta, the original person responsible for the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the material world. According to Srila Swami, Adi Karta, the original doer, implies subsequent creators, maintainers, and annihilators. So if Adi is there, then subsequent should be there. Otherwise, there would be no meaning to the word Adi or original. Therefore, this verse describes that the absolute truth expands himself into the Guna Avataras, or the incarnations, who carry out the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the universe through the modes of passion, goodness, and ignorance, respectively. It is significant here that although this verse mentions creation through the material mode of passion and annihilation through the material mode of ignorance, it does not mention maintenance by Vishnu through the material mode of goodness. That is because Vishnu is Vishuddha-sattva, or existing on the platform of unlimited transcendental goodness. So for maintenance, because Vishnu himself is in charge, Lord Vishnu himself is in charge, so he doesn't say I do it through material mode of goodness. Although Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma are somewhat affected by the prescribed duties as superintendents of the modes of nature, Lord Vishnu is Vishuddha-sattva, completely beyond contamination, even by the material mode of goodness. As described in the Vedas, na tasya karyam karanam cha vidyate. The Lord has no occupational duty, whereas Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma are understood to be servants of the Lord. Vishnu is completely transcendental. So Brahmaji and Shivji, although they're in charge of the modes of passion and ignorance respectively, but somehow they come in contact. Brahmaji comes in contact more with the passion than Lord Shiva comes in contact with ignorance, but somehow they still do. But Lord Vishnu never. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, Vishnu described in this verse as Kritupati, the Lord of sacrifice, is understood to have appeared in a previous age as incarnation Suyagya, the son of Prajapati Ruchi. Whereas Brahma and Shiva faithfully engage in the service to the Supreme Lord, Vishnu is the Supreme Lord himself, and therefore his activities of maintaining the Brahmans and religious principles, as mentioned in this verse, Dvij Dharma Setu, are not occupational duties, but Leela. So what Krishna does, or Vishnu, Lord Vishnu does, they're all Leela, pastimes. He's not bound, he's not these are not his Varnashram Dharma duties. He's not bound by anything. He just does pastimes. He's supremely independent. So in addition to being a Guna avatar, Vishnu is also a Leela avatar, according to Srila Jiva Goswami. The Mahabharata Shanti Parva describes the birth of Lord Brahma from the lotus flower emanating from Vishnu and the subsequent birth of Lord Shiva from the angry eyes of Lord Brahma. Vishnu, however, is the self-manifested personality of Godhead who enters the material universe by his own internal potency. In conclusion, Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is a supreme controller whose personal form is full of eternal existence, knowledge, and bliss, who is beginningless, but is the beginning of everything, who is known as Govinda, and who is the original cause of all causes. Still, that same eternal Lord manifests himself as Brahma and Shiva in the sense that the primeval controllers, Brahma and Shiva, manifest the potency and supreme will of the Lord, although they themselves are not supreme. So yes, this point has been described or detailedly explained earlier in other cantos. But yeah, it's coming back again in the shloka, so it's been described again. And basically also we should understand the position of Vishnu, Brahma and Shiva. Because in Hinduism generally say, oh, Trimurti, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, they are the supreme, and people become confused. Who is the supreme? And then they have big TV debates about all this, but they don't want to learn from the scriptures. That's the problem. Dharmasya daksha duhitar yajnisht murtyam narayana nar rishi pravara prashantah Nashkarmya lakshanam uvacha chachar karma yo adyapi chast rishivarya nishevitangri. Nar Narayan Rishi, who is perfectly peaceful and the best of the sages, was born as a son of Dharma and his wife Murti, the daughter of Daksha. Nar Narayan Rishi taught the devotional service of the Lord, by which material work ceases, and he himself perfectly practiced this knowledge. He is living even today, his lotus feet served by the greatest of saintly persons. It is understood that Nar Narayan Rishi spoke transcendental knowledge to great saintly persons such as Narad Muni. On the basis of these teachings, Narad was able to describe Nashkarmyam, or the devotional service of the Lord, which eradicates material work, as mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. The Atma Swarupa, or eternal form of the living entity, is devotional service to the personality of Godhead. But our perception of our eternal form is covered by material concept of life, just as our normal understanding of our life is covered by a dream. Nashkarmyam, or the cessation of material work, is possible only by the devotional service of the Lord, as stated by Narad Muni himself. The process of transforming ordinary karma into Nashkarmya, or transcendental work, is summarized by Srila Prabhupada in his commentary on this verse spoken by Narad Muni. Fruitive work, in which almost all people in general are engaged, is always painful, either in the beginning or at the end. It can be fruitful only when made subservient to the devotional service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita also it is confirmed that the result of such fruitive work may be offered for the service of the Lord, otherwise it leads to material bondage. The bona fide enjoyer of the fruitive work is the personality of Godhead, and thus when it is engaged for the sense gratification of the living beings, it becomes an acute source of trouble. So fruitive work, it's just painful because it takes too much wood, effort, energy, time, and in the end, the results are not that great, and the results are temporary, very little. So what's the point? But if the same fruity work or the result of that fruity work, karma phal, if it is engaged in the service of the Lord, Krishna says, Yagyarthat karmana anyatra. Everything should be done for Yagya or Vishnu, for the satisfaction of Vishnu. If we cannot do that, at least the result of our material work should be given, part of it should be given in the service of the Lord. Then it can give some satisfaction or some happiness. Otherwise, it's painful, and then it becomes a source of entanglement, further entanglement, means further karmic reactions. And to take the karmic reactions, we have to take birth again. So that's a problem with karma. So that's a purpose. It becomes an acute source of trouble. According to Matsya Puran, Dharma, the father of Narayan Rishi, was born from the right breast of Brahma and later married 13 of the daughters of Prajapati Daksha. The Lord himself appeared from the womb of Murti Devi. So that's some detail about Narayan Rishi. And as we know, he is still there at Badrinath doing his tapasya. We can go and take darshan whenever we want. Indro Vishankya Mama Dhama Jigrikshati Kamam Nyayukta Saganam Sabadar Upakhyam Gatva Pasaro Gavana Vasanta Samandavate Stri Prekshaneshu Bhir Vidya Tatam Mahikyaha. King Indra became fearful, thinking that Narayan Rishi would become very powerful by his severe penances and seize Indra's heavenly kingdom. Thus Indra, not knowing the transcendental glories of the incarnation of the Lord, sent Cupid and his associates to the Lord's residence in Badrikashram. As the charming breezes of spring created a most sensuous atmosphere, Cupid himself attacked the Lord with arrows in the form of irresistible glances of beautiful women. So those arrows of irresistible glances of beautiful women, they are enough to distract somebody from his tapasya. This verse and the following 9 verses illustrate personality of Godhead's opulence of supreme renunciation. The word Atanamahigya, not understanding the glories of the Lord, indicates that King Indra was placing the personality of Godhead on the same level as he himself, considering the Lord an ordinary enjoyer who would be attracted by mundane sex life. Indra's plot to cause the fall down of Narayan Rishi could not affect the Lord, but it reveals the short-sightedness of Indra himself. Because Indra is attached to his heavenly kingdom, he took it for granted that the Supreme Lord was performing austerities to acquire such flickering phantasmagorias as the kingdom of heaven. So everybody thinks from his perspective. Indra is attached to his position, to his heaven, to his apsaras. So he thinks everybody must be attached because I'm attached. And if I remove that power position from that person, then the person will be very upset or angry or sad, and then he cannot continue with doing whatever he's doing. But it's not the same thing. Vigyaya Shakra Kritam Kramam Adi Devaha Praha Prahasya Gata Vismaya Ejmanan Ma Bhaira Vibho Madan Maruta Deva Vadvo Grinitano Balim Shunyam Imam Kurudvam. The primeval Lord, understanding the offense committed by Indra, did not become proud. Instead, he spoke laughingly as follows to Cupid and his followers, who were trembling before him. Do not fear, O mighty Madan, O wind god and wives of the demigods. Please accept these gifts I am offering you and kindly sanctify my ashram by your presence. The word Gata Vismaya or free from false pride is very significant. If one becomes proud by performing severe penances, such penances are considered material. One should not think, I'm a great austere personality. One should not think I'm a great austere personality. Actually, one is not. We're just there to think. But when we think I'm great, that is where the problem is. We are not austere. We are not great. We are nothing, actually. Nothing. We don't have any strength, any capabilities to do anything until the strength is given by the Lord. And even if we perform some austerity, it is actually it's nothing. Look at the austerities performed by great sages and great demons also. Hiranyakashipu, Ravan. We are nothing. But the problem is we start thinking we are very big. And then we become proud and Krishna has to burst the bubble. Sri Narayan could immediately understand the foolishness of Indra, and thus he was amused by the whole situation. Cupid and the heavenly women, understanding the great offense, were trembling before Narayan in fear of receiving a powerful curse. But the Lord, exhibiting most sublime saintly behavior, reassured them by saying, Ma bhya, don't worry about it, and actually offered them nice prasadam and articles of worship. If you do not give me the opportunity to act as host to the demigods and other respectable personalities, he said, what will be the use of my ashram? My ashram will be void without the opportunity to receive respectable personalities such as you. Similarly, the ISKCON is establishing beautiful centers in all the major cities of the world. In some of these centers, such as those in Los Angeles, Bombay, London, Paris, Melbourne, society has established very gorgeous preaching ashrams. But the Vaishnavas who live in these beautiful buildings feel that the buildings are void if guests do not come to hear about Krishna and chant his holy name. Thus, one may establish a beautiful ashram, not for one's personal sense gratification, but to execute Krishna consciousness peacefully and encourage others to take to Krishna consciousness also. So this is a perfect use of an ashram. So Narayan Rishi, he invited Indra and the wind god, Vayudev, and all the wives of the demigods to come and take prasad. Itham bruvati abhayade naradeva deva savrid namra shirasah sagrinam tamuchu etad vibho tvai pare avikrite vichitram swaram dhir nikaranat pad padme. My dear King Nimi, when Narayan Rishi thus spoke, eradicating the fear of the demigods, they bowed their heads with shame and addressed the Lord as follows, to invoke his compassion. Our dear Lord, you are always transcendent, beyond the reach of illusion, and therefore you are forever changeless. Your causeless compassion towards us, despite our great offense, is not at all unusual in you. Since innumerable great sages who are self-satisfied and free from anger and false pride bow down humbly at your lotus feet. The demigod said, our dear Lord, although ordinary living entities such as the demigods and ordinary men are always disturbed by material pride and anger, you are always transcendental. Therefore, it's not surprising that we, fallible demigods, could not appreciate your glories. Yeah, it's not easy to even appreciate or understand the glories of the Lord. Tvam sevatam surakrita bhavo antaraya swako vilagya parama murajatam padam te anyasya barhishi balinda tatah svabhagam dhatte padam tvam vita yadi vigna murgni. The demigods place many obstacles on the path of those who worship you to transcend the temporary abodes of the demigods and reach your supreme abode. Those who offer the demigods their assigned shares in sacrificial performances encounter no such obstacles. But because you're the direct protector of your devotee, he's able to step over the head of whatever obstacle the demigods place before him. So this is also one of the reasons devotees go through lots of obstacles and troubles when they are when they start to worship the Lord. Demigods place the obstacles. The demigods, headed by Kamadeva Cupid, recognizing their offense at the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, Narayan Rishi, here point out the insignificant position of the demigods in relation to the Supreme Lord. Just as a farmer must pay a specific percentage of his agricultural profit to the king or political head as tax money, all human beings must offer a percentage of the material wealth to the demigods in sacrifice. In the Bhagavad Gita, however, the Lord explains that the demigods are also his servants. It's he himself who awards all benedictions through the agency of the demigods. Although a Vaishnava or devotee of the Lord has no need to worship the demigods, being proud of their exalted material position, sometimes resent the exclusive devotion of the Vaishnava to the Lord and thus try to cause the devotee to fall down, as described in this verse. Surkrita bhavo antaraya. But the demigods here point out that Krishna is directly the protector of his devotees. Therefore, so-called impediments become stimuli for further spiritual advancement for a sincere devotee. So-called impediments. There could be impediments. So many things can be coming. Basically, they are there to purify us. In what way? One thing is, if it is any karmic reaction left, then either the demigods or Krishna can concentrate it and send us our way so it's out of the way and the devotee can make steady progress in this lifetime only. Second is, even if it is not karmic, it is something Krishna has orchestrated through demigods. It is for the devotee to surrender more at the lotus feet of Krishna, understanding without shelter of his lotus feet, I cannot do anything. There's nothing I can do. Only he can protect. So this surrender, this taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord by a devotee, this is what Krishna wants. He's not here to just to enjoy the devotee to see a devotee suffering. He wants the devotees to take shelter of him, to have full faith in Krishna. Yes. Avashya Rakhive Krishna. That Krishna will definitely protect me. We can see in every devotee's life, examples given in Bhagavatam or other scriptures. The example that is coming to my mind is of Draupadi, when she was getting disrobed by Dushasana. Helpless, completely helpless. Dushasana, very, very powerful warrior. She was a lady. He is disrobing. First, she looked at all her 5 husbands. They couldn't do anything. Couldn't even lift their heads. She looked at Bhishma, Drona, Kripacharya. Nobody could do anything. Nobody could even move from their seats. Finally, she held sari with one hand, and with the other hand, she just held it up in the air and called for Krishna. Giridhari, please come, please protect my chastity. Krishna didn't come. And that was a test, real test. Finally, she just let go of the other hand also. Sari, completely let go of sari and completely surrendered. Complete surrender. There was nothing else left. accept Krishna's mercy and help and his intervention. And then Krishna immediately, no, he didn't even delay even for a moment, immediately appeared and protected her. And in the most unique way, he became incarnation. He took the incarnation of a sari. Unlimited sari. Okay, Dushasan, full. Krishna is unlimited. Sari became unlimited. Dushasan is a material person. How much he could pull? But no one ever had seen or heard of unlimited sari. Dushasan kept on pulling, but there was no end. And he was tired and he fell down on the ground, just completely fatigued. But see, through this, Krishna proved many things, many things. That my devotee is always surrendered unto me. He always takes shelter of me. He doesn't give up his hope or his faith in me. And I'm always there to protect my devotee. Draupadi Maharani became so famous, not just because of this, and obviously because of her devotional service, her attitude of love towards Krishna. But this is how he glorifies his devotees. But the question is, do we have that kind of faith as Draupadi had? No. Any problem comes, we hold on to our sari of bank balance, our bodily strength, our relative strength, our this connection or that connection. Of course, I mean, we don't have that kind of faith. Yes, we have to admit, but we have to develop that faith. And slowly, Krishna shows nothing else will help. Nothing else will help. But this is his way of working. So he lets us develop our faith gradually. But through the scriptures, we have to understand it's only he's going to help. Nobody else and nothing else. Devotees can help in developing that faith, but ultimately he is going to protect. Nobody else. So here, now the demigods are very ashamed and they are saying, the demigods here state, we thought, our dear Lord, that we could disturb your consciousness by our foolish tricks. But by your mercy, even your devotees pay little regard to us. So why should you take our foolish behavior seriously? The word yadi here is used to indicate the certainty that Krishna is always the protector of his surrendered devotees. Although there may be many obstacles on the path of the sincere devotee who's preaching the glories of the Lord, such obstacles increase the determination of the devotee. Therefore, according to Srila Jiva Goswami, the continuous obstacles presented by the demigods form a kind of ladder or stairway upon which the devotee steadily progresses back to the kingdom of God. So according to Srila Jiva Goswami, continuous obstacles, they become what? Kind of ladder or stairway upon which the devotee steadily progresses back to the kingdom of God. A similar verse appears in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:2-33. O Madhav, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord of the Goddess of Fortune, if devotees completely in love with you sometimes fall from the path of devotion, they do not fall like non-devotees, for you still protect them. Thus they fearlessly traverse the heads of their opponents and continue to progress in devotional service. So So no matter what happens, we just need to keep going. That's all. That is most important. Kshut trit trikala gunam marut jaiv sheshan jnana asman par jal dhin nati tiryat kechit krodhasya yanti vifalasya vasham pade gor majjanti dushcharat pashascha vrithot srijanti. Some men practice severe penances to cross beyond our influence, which is like an immeasurable ocean with endless waves of hunger, thirst, heat, cold, and other conditions brought about by the passing of time, such as a sensuous wind and the urges of the tongue and sex organs. Nevertheless, although crossing this ocean of sense gratification through severe penances, such persons foolishly drown in a cow's hoofprint when conquered by useless anger. Thus, they exhaust the benefit of their difficult austerities in vain. Those who do not accept the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be considered in two categories. Those engaged in sense gratification are easily conquered by the demigods through various weapons such as hunger, thirst, sexual desire, lamentation for the past, and vain hoping for the future. Such materialistic fools infatuated with the material world are easily controlled by the demigods, who are the ultimate supplying agents of sense gratification. But according to Sridhar Swami, persons who attempt to subdue the desires of the material senses and thus avoid the control of the demigods without surrendering to the Supreme Lord are even more foolish than the sense gratifiers. Although crossing the ocean of sense gratification, those who perform severe penances without service to the Lord eventually drown in tiny puddles of anger. And it is a tiny puddles of air. That puddle is how big? Just puddle or hole created by cow's hoofprint. Why? Because anger. One who simply performs material penances does not actually purify his heart. By one's material determination, one may restrict the activities of the senses, although one's heart is still filled with material desires. The practical result of this is krodha or anger. We have seen artificial performers of penance who have become very bitter and angry through denial of the senses. Being indifferent to the Supreme Lord, such persons do not achieve ultimate liberation, nor can they enjoy material sense gratification. Rather, they become angry, and through cursing others or enjoying false pride, they uselessly exhaust the results of their painful austerities. Why? Because they have not tasted the nectar of service of Krishna. So, and they haven't exhausted their desires. They have somehow suppressed the desires, but they haven't exhausted them or found new desires, new transcendental desires. That's why these yogis, they generally become very angry, and people like to serve them because they know if we don't, then this yogi can become angry and then curse. But that curse, when a yogi gives a curse, means he diminishes the mystic power he has accumulated through the austerities. So then he goes back into austerities. But what's the use? Thus, anger gives neither liberation nor material sense gratification, but merely burns up all the results of material penances and austerities. Being useless, such anger is compared to a useless puddle found in a cow's hoofprint. Thus, after crossing over the ocean of sense gratification, the great yogis who are indifferent to the Lord drown in puddles of anger. Although the demigods admit that the devotees of the Lord actually conquer the miseries of material life, it is understood here that a similar result is not to be obtained by so-called yogis who are not interested in devotional service to the Supreme Lord. But it doesn't mean that devotees don't get angry or cannot get angry, because we are not at that stage yet, that our anger is also transcendental. We are very much in the beginning stages, and and trying not to fulfill our material desires, but at the same time we haven't developed the full taste for service of Krishna, or full taste for dovetailing our desires in the service of the Lord. So we become angry. Of course, we are also again not at the stage of where we can use anger like Hanumanji or Arjun used in the service of Rama and Krishna. Our anger, still, it is material anger. So one thing is, yes, we got to control it. We get angry because of what? Because of our expectations. Expectations means desires. We were expecting, say, some prasadam from somebody and it didn't come. Whether the person purposefully didn't bring it or he forgot, whatever the reason may be, but we become angry. So as a aspiring devotee or struggling devotee, neophyte devotee, we have to understand Krishna is behind everything. So our expectation was to have my hunger or belly fulfilled, but Krishna wanted something else. So we just have to surrender to Krishna's plans. This is just an example of prasadam. There could be millions of examples. Anger is because of our expectations from others. So if we don't have expectations, whatever comes, if it comes, good, doesn't come, good, comes partially, great, whatever comes. Actually, it will be whatever Krishna desires, Krishna orchestrates. That is what's going to happen. Cannot happen without his sanctioning. So just we got to go with that. But in our stage, it's very difficult to control. But this is how we learn. This is how we make progress. Of course, if we become angry, we might say something, and then Prabhupada has given wonderful procedure. Just pay obeisances, ask for forgiveness, keep moving. Iti pragranatam tesham striyo ati adbhuta darshana darshayamas shushurusham swarchita kurvatir vibhu. While the demigods were thus praising the Supreme Lord, the all-powerful Lord suddenly manifested before their eyes many women who were astonishingly gorgeous, decorated with fine clothes and ornaments, and all faithfully engaging in the Lord's service. What is it that Krishna or Lord Narayan cannot do? Lord Narayan showed his causeless mercy towards the demigods by relieving them of their false prestige. Although demigods were proud of their personal beauty and female companions, the Lord showed that he was already being adequately served by the innumerable gorgeous females, each of whom was far more beautiful than any female companion imagined by the demigods. The Lord manifested such uniquely attractive women through his own mystic potency. So what were these women? How they were going to attract the Lord? No way possible. Te devanuchara drishtva striya shrireva rupini gandhena momo hastasam rupodharya hatah shriyaha. When the followers of the demigods gazed upon the fascinating mystic beauty of the women created by Narayana Rishi and smelled the fragrance of their bodies, the minds of these followers became bewildered. Indeed, upon seeing the beauty and magnificence of such women, the representatives of the demigods were completely diminished in their own opulence. Tanaha deva devesha pranatan prahasanniva asame katamam vrignam savarnam swargabhushanam. The Supreme Lord of Lords then smiled slightly and told the representatives of heaven who were bowing down before him, please choose one of these women, whomever you find suitable for you. She will become the ornament of the heavenly planets. Narayan Rishi was almost laughing upon seeing the defeat of the demigods. However, being extremely grave, he did not actually laugh. Although the demigods might have thought we are simply low-class fools in comparison to these women. The Lord encouraged them to choose one of the women, whomsoever they considered equal in character to themselves. The beauty they selected would become the ornament of heaven. I guess I'm getting some cough, so I'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments?
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Am I audible? Prabhuji, I have one question again today. The question is from the book Krishna Lila, and when Lord Krishna kills Kansa. So there is something interesting which I read yesterday. It was that once Krishna kills Kansa, then I think Kansa were 7 or 8 brothers. It is mentioned there, and the elder brother name was Kanka. But Prabhuji, actually, we never read this that he has got 7 or 8 brothers. We only read that he was alone. So later, I mean, Krishna gives this duty to Balram to kill all those, take care of those rest of the brothers because they were also angry because Kansa got killed and they wanted to take revenge. So they attacked and then Balram killed all of them. Right. This is the story.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's not mentioned anywhere, Prabhuji. Only at this particular situation, that when Kamsa got killed, then it's mentioned that he's got 8 brothers. And it's
must be mentioned in some other Puranas. I just don't know. If it is in Bhagavatam, it must be there somewhere else. I just never read it. Yes, that is true.
Okay.
But it must be there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, it was interesting to know because I never read it. All of a sudden, we come to know. We are very eager to know that yes, okay, this is something new. That he has got 8 brothers, 7 brothers also. So, okay, brother. Thanks for telling me.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Praji. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.